Welcome, everybody, to Let's Talk Computer Science, a podcast dedicated to talking about the past, present, and future of computer science. This podcast is made possible by our friends at Rex Academy. Be sure to check out their amazing CS platform, including courses on cybersecurity, app development, and everybody's buzzword these days, artificial intelligence. Don't have a teacher? Not a problem. Rex is now providing instructors virtually as part of their platform, so be sure to check them out at rex.academy. And today, I'm excited to have on the show two guests who both teach high school computer science, both in New York, Victoria Berkowitz and Kuri DeFede. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
So you're practitioners. You're in the space. I see behind you, Kuri, that there's actually like an emulator back there. I mean, this is real, guys. This is not we're going to pull just some random person. These are two people that are actually living it at this moment. So I'm going to ask y'all both this first before we get into kind of what your ins and outs of your day job look like. What was that moment in your life where computer science really just like that was it clicked, the light bulb moment when you're like, maybe you're a student, maybe you're a teacher. Victoria, we'll start with you. What was that? Was there a time when you're like, okay, maybe computer science is a pretty neat thing and I really want to teach it?
Yeah, so actually, before being a teacher, I was a software developer. So that click for, computer science is for me happened in college. I had to take a prerequisite course for my statistics major. I was going to be like an actuary, do all that great statistics stuff. And it was a coding class. And so when I took this computer science class, I realized, wow, like this is so logical, just like how math is, but I could also create, just like how art or other like creative disciplines are. And so being able to do both, where there's like certain rules and syntax and logic, but the creativity of it all, I just like loved that.
Yeah, and an actuary would be also somewhat interesting, but not as interesting, I would imagine, as the day-to-day challenges you get as a computer science teacher. That's interesting. So you came from a software angle, development angle. Kuri, what about you?
My first aha moment was also in college. I went to school not knowing what I wanted to do. I always enjoyed science and math, but wasn't sure. My brother is actually a programmer, and I thought it wasn't for me because he was so into it. But I took a class kind of on a whim in college in my sophomore year and just absolutely fell in love with it and knew that it was what I wanted to do. Like Victoria, I actually ended up going through and majoring in computer science and then coming back to teaching a little bit later. But it was just that moment. I just knew that it was for me.
That's awesome. That both of you have that background. It's a rare thing, actually, because a lot of times, and I've worked with the folks at Rex, of course, who are sponsoring the podcast. We've talked about the shortage of computer science teachers or those that are qualified to teach computer science. So it's interesting that both of you guys kind of came from those pathways to get here. But it's rare that I have computer science teachers on the show, believe it or not. I mean, even though this is a podcast about it, a lot of times it's people that are like, practitioners, or maybe they're administrators, or maybe they're helping out, or they're CTE chairs or whatever. So I want to get a peek into the classroom. Tell me, like, what's going on right now? Let's see, it's March when we're recording this. What's happening in your classroom right now with your students? What are some projects you're working on? Kuri, we'll go back to you on this. Tell me a couple things what's a couple things that are happening in the classroom these days? Because it is spring, it's, getting close to the end here. And then age groups, you're saying high school. So are you dealing with freshmen all the way to seniors?
Yeah, so I do a lot of the upper level electives. So I do mostly sophomores to seniors, although I also teach some asynchronous courses that are 8th and 9th grade. So I teach AP Computer Science A, and we're learning about 2D arrays right now and preparing for the exam. I teach a Python class where they're doing processing in Python and they're developing Brick Breaker. I have a web development class where we're learning how to create web pages for business. And then also during it being March, it is robotics season. So I have robotics competitions coming up, which isn't necessarily in the classroom, but is after school and takes up a lot of my time. In 2 weeks, we're headed up to Rochester for a 3-day robotics event.
Nice. Yeah, as generally is the case, especially most computer science teachers in my district, same thing. It's like your day job, so to speak, and then there's all the after hour. The robotics program here at Westlake High School is in Austin is massive, and they've won at state competitions and been in global competitions. And I know that gentleman works pretty much every weekend. I say work. He doesn't get paid. He's volunteering for a lot of it, but kudos to you. Victoria, what about you? What's the ins and outs? And then ages again, similar? Are you doing upper level as well?
So I teach right now, one elective class. So that's 10th through 12th grade. That's design, animation, and game maker. And so right now, the way that I teach it is very self-paced, so that like I have kids who can move on to more advanced things, or kids who really want to hone in and focus on one type of skill. So everyone's kind of everywhere in that class. But it's really exciting because they're making projects where they're coding with Python to create shapes and use interactions with the keyboard. And it's very different than I teach another course, APCS Principles. And so we offer APCS Principles for all of our ninth graders, meaning that it's compulsory for all of our ninth graders to take it. And so because it's March, we are in create task mode. And so if you don't know what that is, it's part of the exam. So the APCSP exam is special, and that 30% of your score is actually a project that you do during your school hours. And so it's really cool because all the kids are, setting them free, like letting them use their wings. And they're just coding projects that they want to do. And so it's fun because they're like, wait, so you mean like I could code about this thing that I like? And I was like, whatever you like. Like, my only requirement is that it's school appropriate and like we're good to
Yes.
go. And so it's really cool to see some of their personalities come out even more. And some of them are like, I hope it's okay. Like, I worked on this at home and I'm like almost done. And I'm like, yes, of course. That's wonderful. Like, and seeing how some of them being able to be creative in their own way without all the restrictions, how they just like really blossom with the coding and like take it in the direction that they want to. So that's all ninth graders, APCSP.
I love it. And that's that part, that APCSP for all is a big mantra, I believe, in your school too, to make sure
Yeah.
that all those kids have exposure to that. Let's follow up on those projects. I'm always curious, like what is one of the more interesting things you've seen? You don't have to name the student, of course, because it's, we're not but just say like, is there a project that either of you have seen? And we'll go back to you, Victoria, on this first. That was like, wow, okay, that's incredible, or it's like I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I had one kid, and so he just really likes the whole visuals we do. So the way that we teach APCSP is because our kids have had that infrastructure of knowing we have Hatch, but it's really just Scratch.
Mm-hmm.
Since elementary and stuff, they have a lot of experience with that visual type of aspect of code. I had this one kid, like it was last year. He just completely made it. It was really funny. It was like about like a dumpster fire and like putting out dumpster fires, which seems like really ridiculous, but it was such a cool experience of, this rabbit sprite, like creating a dumpster fire and acting like it didn't. And then your job was to like shoot out all of the dumpster fires. And it's just like, it's really ridiculous, but it's just so funny. And then, like you have other ones where they just like go super crazy with like the visuals and like being able to see that. I didn't grow up with like block-based coding. Like when I had learned computer science, everything was text-based except for like
Yes.
when you finally learned how to make like GUIs, and that was also still
Yeah.
text-based coding. And so like me being able to see like the like logic behind it, but also these like really nice visuals is like really cool. Like me personally.
Yeah, the artistic element that is now being sprung into this is it's so much. I remember vividly taking a C++ class. This is how old I am. Way back when in the 90s, and it was just like it would take me forever just to get even my name to fly like across the screen. But that was like, and it was like that was amazing when I did
Yeah.
that. It only took me several hours, and messed up code several times. Kuri, what about you? Is there a project or something you've seen recently in the last couple of years that you're like, oh wow, that's all right, that's different or unexpected?
Yeah, I see a lot of, recreations of games, and sometimes it's really insane to see, a kid remake Frogger, and with the text space and with everything. And so it's really cool to see how they just dive into it and go for it. I think the best project I've seen though was in Scratch, and it was one of my top students, and he made Super Scratch Bros, and so it was supposed to be like Super Smash
Smash
Bros.
Brothers, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I honestly think he spent years on it, but it was so good. And he had the camera angles and how it would zoom in and zoom out, and he had all the different characters with all of the different features and abilities. And yeah, it was really, really impressive.
That game actually, so because I teach the design, animation, and game course,
Yeah.
I like to bring in games like my old consoles sometimes so they can actually see what the games look like. And so a lot of the ones like they really like to play like Nintendo Smash Melee. Like I have my GameCube I bring in, but it was funny because one day we had the GameCube Smash, we had like the Switch Smash, and then we had this kid's Scratch Brothers, like Scratch Bros. And so like we
Yeah.
were having three different like smashes going
Oh
on
yeah.
around the room, and all the kids were playing it and getting to see like an experience of like, you know, what is it like to play like a very similar game, but like on different platforms that they were coded or different time periods. So it was really cool. It's like, it's a very like, I don't know. I feel like we like it's like a full out Smash game, like enough for kids to play it for a whole period. It was really cool.
Where are you guys on like the whole esports then? Because I know that like Smash Brothers can be part of the esports thing, and there's also League of Legends and those things. Are you participating in that? Is that something that your school participates in, or do you have any say in that?
We have an esports team. Kuri and I personally aren't on it. I'm a little bit newer, but I do play video games and I do play League of Legends. So I do talk to my kids about that a lot. I can't speak so much as to like what they're doing. I think they definitely are playing League of Legends or maybe Valorant, a lot of the kids. But
Okay.
I'm not sure where they are competition wise with all of that.
Yeah, so it is part. So it's part of it, but you guys aren't directly involved in it. Because I was thinking with all this gaming and design that you're already doing, it seems natural that that would be another extension of that, and that is huge. I mean, there's a lot of we've talked about it with some previous guests about the scholarship opportunities that are now popping up that weren't there like maybe 5-6 years ago. Sometimes with computer science, now my other hat I used to wear was a tech director, and I will tell you that some of the kids that let's just say got into the most mischief were my computer science kiddos. So I'm going to flip this a little bit and say, you talked about some things you were surprised to see. Is there ever been a situation where like, ooh, and again, not naming names, but is there a kid that maybe did something or got into some mischief or you're like, ooh, okay. Yeah, because hacking I think is been spun positive now, which is good because there is some good positives to hacking too, but then we sometimes hear it and think, okay, that's cheating or it's gaming the system or something like that. So Kuri, do you have a thought? You were nodding right away, like, you know, yep, I know exactly this kid, and this is going to be the kid I'm going to talk about. Because tell me what happened.
Yeah. So this kid, he's still here, but he is a great kid, and he is super curious and super interested and wanted to learn more. And so one of the things we were learning Python last year, and he's just experimenting with Python scripts, and he realized that a bunch of students all had the same password for their Apple IDs.
Oh,
So he wrote a script that would log in and like see where everybody was. And
okay,
it was very obviously you shouldn't be logging in, but it wasn't like he didn't have malicious intent.
yeah,
But it was certainly something that it's like, wait a minute, like everyone's Apple ID just got logged in at the same time, and something that we needed to talk about. But he was open about it with me, and he was open about it with the principal, and so it wasn't like a super he wasn't punished for it, but
yeah,
it was actually, it was actually a good thing. Like he exposed a security flaw that we had.
yeah. I love
So
that.
but it was definitely something that, may with a different administration or a different school have been taken very, very differently. So I'm thankful to be working somewhere where we can take that and harness it and explore it and work with it and move forward. And we're actually starting a cybersecurity cohort next year. And so that's
Awesome.
something we're going to be exploring even further in depth.
I think that's great too. The response I think is so important there as an administrator and as a teacher is with a kid like that, you could you go a couple different paths. I've shared a story in the past. I have a student of mine, Rohit, who he and his brother figured out how to hack our SIS, our grade book, and it told us all the different ways. Essentially, he came clean with it as an eighth grader, and I was just like, okay, well, I can either punish you or I can hire you. And so we had him go through and pick up. We did a dummy server and had him find all the leaks. And it's funny, we actually we were able to stop all the points of failure except for one, and that was that he would walk around and see teachers' laptops, and they would have their password on a post-it note everywhere across the school, and that's basically how he was logging in. But that kind of kid, again, you punish them, they could go a totally different path in life. So that's interesting. Victoria, about you, any fun stories there?
That's the one.
Yeah,
She
that's like, yeah, that's a pretty. I mean, yeah, that's a big flaw, but also to come clean with it is so important too.
I
The
do
other
have my
story,
kids sometimes, my seniors, because they learn. There's they just really want the Wi-Fi password. We don't have the Wi-Fi set up anymore where they can do this. But so many
Oh,
times, like if I like, I'm bouncing around the room, but I have my own laptop that I use. It's not a school sanctioned one, but I'm connected to the guest Wi-Fi. I'll like come back and I'll see like someone started like a command prompt and like is trying to figure out like what and so like they've definitely like tried to like while I've had my like laptop up and it's like connected to the projector and stuff like try to go in and get it and stuff like that. We don't have it set up like that anymore, but it's always really funny to see like the kids like being creative and like doing that.
Yeah,
they
they
keep
did it with the robotics laptops too.
Yeah.
funny. Yeah, they keep you on your toes. That's for sure. What about so AI, of course, has been a big part of the world lately in education. It's been around for, again, AI has been happening for a long time, but generative AI is fairly new in terms of like Bard and Chat GPT and all the other kind of digital art AI that's out there now. What's happening in the high school space? What are the kids' reactions to it? Is it I know that like New York City DOE blocked it because of age restriction, and then recently, last week actually, ChatGPT came out and said if you're 13 plus with parental consent, which of course kids they'll just do it. But um, have you had discussions with it? Are they using it? Or is there? I mean, what can you share us on that front?
I've certainly had discussions about it in my classroom. The kids are well aware of it. Actually, before ChatGPT came out, I think it's the same group, OpenAI, came out
Yep.
with the art generative one. And it was my students who showed it to me the first time. But we talk about it. I tried to see if it could solve some of my problems that I give, and it solved them, but in a way that I knew that the students wouldn't be able to do it. So I was able to like
Mm,
give it a slightly different prompt, and then it solved it like they would. And so it's definitely out there and having the conversation. Okay, why do I need to learn how to code if Chat GPT can do it for me, right? And just having that conversation of like understanding, like if you don't understand the code, how are you going to know what it gives you is good?
yeah.
And how are you going to be able to use this? And yes, this is a tool you might be able to use in your future, but you need to have the background knowledge to understand it. And I feel like in general, my students get that. And, maybe it's they've all chosen to be in my class. They're all upper level. They're very interested in it. But I don't see it as a problem. And we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
the same for my classes. I mean, me, I'm taking courses in cybersecurity, and so like sometimes like it's so weird being a like student and a teacher at the same time. Because when I used to be just a student for computer science, like I would think a certain way, but now that I'm a teacher and also a student, like in these classes, I try to like break down these problems, and so I actually use ChatGPT for one of these questions, trying to figure out like, okay, if I were to teach cybersecurity in the future and we did a problem like this, like how would another logical thinking system break it down? And so it actually got it wrong. So
Ah,
I asked it the same question like twice, like very slightly in the difference of my wordings. It was a formulaic question, and it actually it got it wrong, and it gave me an answer in milliseconds and then an answer in microseconds. It had to do with networking, and I confronted it. I said, Chat GPT, like I asked basically the same question twice, but you gave me two different answers. Which one's the right one? And it admitted to it. It was like, you're
yeah.
right. I gave you two different answers. This is the wrong one. I did this wrong. I meant to do that. Like, this is the right one. And so it's
Interesting.
cool. Like me, I feel like I don't worry about Chat GPT. I think like as a teacher, like how can I use it to help me? And I think it's helped a lot, like in other ways. Like, if we do projects and I'm trying to do projects where we're trying to figure out like, write a biography or do a project on this person who impacts computer science, there's all the typical like Bill Gates, all the people who exist that become
Sure.
super popular. But I could adhere it to the demographics of my kids. So if I have a class that's like, you know, 50% like Spanish speaking, I can say like, give me a list of people who've impacted computer science, but give me like these demographics so I can match exactly. And so like, I think that's so beneficial. But me knowing that it's made a mistake, like I totally bragged that to my students. I was like, guys,
Yeah.
I got
I
ChatGPT to
I
make a
broke it.
mistake. Yeah. And it said it was wrong too. It admitted it and it apologized. We talk about it
That's
all the
more than
time.
most humans. Yeah,
Yeah.
most humans
And
won't do that.
we like to talk about AI because, in APCS principles, it's not just coding foundations. Like we talk about that a lot because it's a majority of the class, but we do talk about the impact of computer science. And so in the beginning of the year, like when we were trying to gain their interest, we talked about like, the generative art. If someone uses artificial intelligence, we like try to pull the students. If someone uses artificial intelligence to help like create some piece of artwork, whether it be a poem or like actual like, art mediums, or like, if someone's going to use AI to help them code, like who gets the credit here? Like, is it both? Is it just the person? Is it just the AI? And so I think like Kuri, it opens up like a lot of good room for discussion and seeing how like AI is great, but like it makes mistakes, but also like it takes the humanness out of stuff. And, there's a lot that goes into it, but we have great discussions with it.
Yeah, and the human element, that discussion doesn't happen if you shut it all down, right, from the beginning. If you're like, hey, we're not going to use it, we're not going to talk about it, it doesn't exist. Well, the truth is it does exist. And even if it's not on the school computers, obviously the kids have access in other ways. So good for kudos to both of you for talking about that. I do think that the national narrative that teachers are scared of it and running from it is actually starting to be debunked a little bit. I think there's a survey that came out last week that said 72% of teachers were like, hey, if it can help, like you're saying, if it can help me solve some problems quickly or get me started on a prompt where I can start working down something and save me some time, it's basically like saying, instead of Google searching and finding 72 different websites and some of which are ad riddled, now it's going to do all that for me and save me in 30 minutes and make it a 5-minute prompt. So yeah, kudos to y'all for doing that. As we wrap up, I just want to
oh, sorry,
go ahead.
I used it to create to help me like create some quiz questions, some problems, and all the answers were A. So just make sure you look through it.
Oh, yeah. So a note out there for teachers that are listening to this. Yeah, if you're using it to set up, because I saw a lesson plan. There's a teacher AI. It's like Teacher Cast. I can't remember the name of it. Someone shared last week on an episode, and it was basically a lesson plan and quiz generating AI that's got some open AI on the back end of it. And same thing. They said it was like, you got to go through and check it a little bit. My daughter tried to use it. My 8th grade daughter used it to solve her algebra homework, and it was wrong. I'm a math major, so I went and double checked. I was like, actually, it wasn't. I see what it's trying to do here, but I actually got the wrong answer because she entered the prompt. It's all about how you enter the prompt. There's a new job that's being created called prompt engineers now. That's all about how do you prompt AI. So this is fun. Okay. So having 2 practitioners on the podcast, I love it. I love that you guys are in the space. I love the stories. How do we learn more about you two and your work? Do you guys share this? Are you on social media? Do you post anything anywhere? Do you have a blog, website, anything like that? Where can we find out more about both of you and your work?
Twitter. We both have Twitters. Oh.
Okay.
That's
I love it. Wait, this is it. I told y'all this is real, man. They're in the classroom.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That's our ending music as you tell us your Twitter handles.
Kuri, you can go first. I don't know. Wait. I think mine's really loud where I am.
Yeah, mine is Miss DeFede, MSDIFEDE.
All right, Miss DeFede.
Yeah.
And mine is V_Berkowitz. So it's just V_Berkowitz, BERKOWITZ. Hopefully you can hear that through our
we got it.
Cultural music.
And as the music fades us out, everybody, I want to thank Kuri and Victoria for joining us on the Let's Talk Computer Science podcast. Thanks to our friends again at Rex Academy for making this podcast possible. Be sure to check out their platform at rex.academy. We all know technology will be a part of our future, and as educators and leaders, it's our role to make sure that all of our students have access to that opportunity as well. This is Carl Hooker, listening to the music as we sign off.